9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And we move forward to UY Scotty here being the largest star ever discovered so far. And that always just blows my mind away of how big it is. Actually 1,700 times as big as our own sun. And I mean, try working this number into your mind, it's just impossible.
Fascinating. I mean, if anybody can just, when I saw that, when you say that, I just think of the enormity of the universe that I don't even think you can capture size. It's infinite to me that you just can't put your hand, you can't put your hands around it because it's just endless. And we know the size of our universe just to get from point A to point B, but yet we're not the only universe. You have these other universes outside of ours.
Yeah, that's why we always try to use analogies as like to refer the number to something that we already know in order to just try to comprehend how enormously, ridiculously big this number is.
Well, we've got a picture, and I think everybody, as you're looking at this picture, you can appreciate. She says 1,700 times bigger than our sun. Just get your hands around anything.
Yeah, just like close your eyes and let this number sink in.
Have you ever seen a sunrise like this before? One so bright that you couldn't leave your house without sunglasses. And you'd want to avoid sun tanning at all costs. Well, of course you haven't, because that's not our sun. It's the largest star that we've ever discovered, UY Scuti. And if it were to replace our sun, it would change a lot more than just the amount of sunscreen you'd have to put on. How long would it take for our planet to orbit this massive star? What would that do to our seasons? Would we even survive a single orbit? This is What If, and here's what would happen if Earth orbited UY Scuti. To say that UY Scuti is huge would be an understatement. It's one of the largest things that the human race has ever discovered. To put it in perspective, it's about 1,700 times larger than our sun. If you were to fly a Boeing 777 airplane around UY Scuti, it would take over 1,200 years to make the trip. So, would a star this gigantic even fit into the center of our solar system? Before we can answer that, we need to get to know UY Scuti a little better. Discovered by German astronomers in 1860, UY Scuti is located in the Scutum constellation, about 9,500 light-years from Earth. It's a pulsating star that swells and shrinks periodically, usually shining about 400,000 times brighter than our sun. If UY Scuti took our sun's place in the center of our solar system, it would engulf everything as far out as the orbit of Saturn. That includes all of us here on Earth, so maybe it's better to leave that huge star where it is. Instead, we could just move the Earth to the orbit of UY Scuti, but we'd have to be careful how close we place our planet to this gigantic star. To be habitable, we'd have to put our planet in orbit about 1.5 trillion kilometers away from UY Scuti. At this distance, it would take about 10,000 years for Earth to complete just one orbit around the celestial body. That would change our entire concept of life as we know it. Each season would last 2,500 years. That means that entire civilizations could rise and fall without ever seeing more than one season. For most people, summer might be something they've only heard about through legends. In case a perpetual winter isn't bad enough, don't forget that the orbit around UY Scuti would be located right in the middle of the Milky Way. where cosmic rays and light from other stars would shine bright enough to keep our sky blue all day and night. On top of that, UY Scuti would be pulsing out extra heavy radiation about every 740 days, and things would only get worse the longer we stay there. You see, UY Scuti is a red giant, which means it's a lot closer to its death than our sun is, about 40 times closer to be precise. When it does die, it's expected to explode with the force of more than 100 supernovas. A supernova is the explosion of a star, and it's the largest explosion that takes place in space. So, the force of 100 stars exploding would obliterate everything nearby. Even if the Earth was far enough away to survive the blast, without the star, there would be no heat and no light. And life couldn't survive on Earth without those two things. So once again, what if has killed off the entire human race? Maybe it's a better idea to leave Earth where it is and appreciate how lucky we are to orbit our sun. Well, until it explodes. But that's a story for another What If.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to my stargazers now because they may be able to pick this up with their own telescope. I don't know. We've heard the term the Milky Way. People can recognize the Milky Way. What is the Milky Way, and how did it derive its name?
The Milky Way is the name of our galaxy, the galaxy that we are in. And it gets its name from the ancient Greeks when they observed the Milky Way at night. Of course, we also have a very fantastical picture here of the Milky Way in the Atacama Desert in Chile. Yeah, very, very fantastic image. When the Greeks first observed it, they went on and said, yeah, that looks like spilled milk somehow, or like a milky road. I myself don't see it, to be honest. But the ancients, they imagined things that we don't imagine right now. So I guess the name stuck from there on. Yeah.
You didn't try to change it. Milk, I thought, okay.
Yes, we never tried to change what is like established, and it works fine. Okay. So yeah, so our Milky Way galaxy is it's a spiral galaxy. You see, there are different types of galaxies already. There is an elliptical galaxy that it has the shape of an ellipse, and we have irregular galaxies that do not follow any shape, and then we have the spiral galaxies that our own Milky Way is goes under this category. You see the second image we have here, the spiral arms of the Milky Way galaxy are very evident, and our solar system and our planet and the sun resides in one of the arms of the Milky Way. Yeah.
Well, I hope everybody out there is keeping up, because I just find this absolutely fascinating. And if you guys want to like Google some of this stuff when you
yes, and sure, we will also have links to all the sources. Our viewers can go back to them and read on their own time and pace.
So how big is space? When we look at the Milky Way, it's the size is 100,000 light years. So what is a light year? Well, a light year is defined as the distance light travels within a specific period of time. So 1 light second is 186,000 miles. 1 light minute is 11,160,000 miles. Earth, 8.3 light minutes. Jupiter, 43.2 light minutes. 1 light hour, 671 million miles. To Neptune, 4.1 light years. Then we pass the Kuiper Belt. 1 light day, 16.1 billion miles. as we approach the inner wall of the Oort cloud 29 light days. 1 light year, 5.8 trillion miles. The nearest star and exoplanet, 4.25 light years. 100 light years, 588 trillion miles. One 100,000 light years is the equivalent of 588 quadrillion miles.
Yeah.
The heliopause is defined as the outermost border of our solar system. So when they say outermost border of our solar system, not the universe, but just our solar
Yes.
system.
Yes.
And they said that there's some unexplained changes happening at this border. So you can describe what the heliopause, what it is, then what it does, and why is this of interest to scientists?
Yes, so as you said, yes, the heliopause is the outermost border of our solar system, and it's the border between what's called the solar wind coming out of the sun. That these are high energy particles that the sun outputs into the solar system, and between the interstellar wind coming from outer space. So here we have two regions, right? The solar wind and the interstellar wind. And the heliopause is the line between these two regions. And we also have an image here. So what happened now is that I guess even less than a month ago, astronomers found out that the heliopause was actually changing shape in ways that were unpredicted. We knew beforehand that the heliopause was changing shape already. That's not the new part here. The new part is how it's changing shape. It was figured that it interacted differently with the interstellar wind coming from outer space, differently than predicted. And so you can have a question here, and it's very valid. If the heliopause is at the outer border of the solar system, how did we get to know this information?
Because when you think of when you hear about space travel and you say, okay, to get to the farthest planet in our universe, and this is beyond that, and we can we can detect and measure the shape and how it's changing shape. That to me is just absolutely the fascinating part about your study and your field.
Yeah, and it's so incredibly far away. But luckily for us, we have been on top of it since the 70s, in fact.
Okay.
Because these astronomers, a little less than a month ago, they found this discovery out, analyzing data coming from two spacecrafts called Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. And these two spacecrafts were sent by NASA, in fact, in the 70s. Their initial purpose was not towards the heliopause. They were just two spacecraft sent out there to explore the planets, and they were just meant to cross the solar system and go into the what we call interstellar space, that is the space between stars. And so these two spacecrafts now, they have crossed the solar system, and they have crossed even the heliopause, and they are now alone and cold in interstellar space.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, it's always fascinating to me too, because when you think of even astronauts and people that sign up to go on these missions and things, and you think,
Very
the
brave.
tremendous sacrifice that they're making and the risks involved in that, because you're not just talking about a trip to Texas and back. I mean, you're talking.
Hundreds of thousands of miles.
So I'm glad that at least our technology has advanced where we can send equipment to visualize some of these things until we get a better
Exactly.
grasp of space travel. And I have to laugh about, what do you think? You know, we're talking about Mars, I guess, travel and actually habitating Mars. Do you project in your circles that will happen one day?
Well, actually, yes, but that day is not near by any measure. I mean, I do not think that in my lifetime, or even the lifetime of my future kids, that they would be able to go to Mars. I mean, the road is still very, very bumpy there. I mean, it's not. There are a lot of equipment that we still need, a lot of science still not even there for us to go there. We need hubs, we need places that would be able to host humans for a long time, and all of that is just not there on the horizon yet. And even the journey itself to Mars is much longer than, say, the journey to the moon. So are we, even as humans, prepared yet mentally and psychologically to afford such a journey? I do not think so, or at least I think that we still need time to be prepared, to be trained, and that it's not just something that you do on a whim. Nothing in science is just, let's just pack our things and go. It doesn't work like this. So we need years and years of preparation and years of technology being sent to Mars beforehand, before actual humans would be able to inhabit it. And I'm just talking even about a small sense of being there, like not inhabit as living luxuriously like here on Earth. Yeah, it would just stage one of doing science and basic and maybe basic planting. So even that would take a lot of time. So, but one day, yeah, nothing happens. Just
We'll see.
It does take a road. It's a journey.
I mean, the moon and Mars are often thought of as like, is this some escape hatch for rich people? But it won't be that at all. It's anyone who, for the early people that go to Mars, it'll be far more dangerous. I mean, really, it kind of reads like Shackleton's ad for Antarctic explorers. You know, it's like difficult, dangerous, good chance you'll die. Excitement for those who survive. That kind of thing. And I think there's not many people who actually want to go in the beginning, because all those things I said are true. But there'll be some who will, for whom the excitement of the frontier and exploration exceeds the concern of danger. And they will start off building the most elementary infrastructure, just a base to create propellant, a power station, glass domes in which to grow crops, all the sort of fundamentals without which you cannot survive. And then really there's going to be an explosion of entrepreneurial opportunity, because Mars will need everything from iron foundries to pizza joints to nightclubs.
Definitely pizza joints.
I think Mars should really have great bars. The Mars bar. It's all right. Look, I love dad jokes. All right? What's wrong with you? I'm dad.
What do you think the timeline for this is?
So I'm feeling pretty optimistic about the timeline, although I can be a little, sometimes my timelines are a little, you know, people have told me that my timelines historically have been optimistic, and so I'm trying to recalibrate to some degree here. But I can tell you what I know currently is the case is that we are building the first ship, the first Mars or interplanetary ship right now, and I think we'll be able to do short flights, short sort of up and down flights, probably sometime in the first half of next year. And this is a very big booster and ship. The liftoff thrust of this would be about twice that of a Saturn V. So it's capable of doing 150 metric tons to orbit and be fully reusable. So the expendable payload is around double that number. So what's amazing about this ship, assuming we can make full and rapid reusability work, is that we can reduce the marginal cost per flight dramatically, by orders of magnitude compared to where it is today. This question of reusability is so fundamental to rocketry. It is the fundamental breakthrough that's needed. If you consider aircraft, for example, you can lease a 747 and do a return flight full of cargo from California to Australia for $500,000. That's what it costs to lease a 747 fully round trip to Australia, which is far. To buy a single engine turboprop plane, a good one, would be about $1.5 million. And that can't even reach Australia, and it's tiny compared to a 747. So what that means is like it costs less to use a giant plane with huge cargo for a long trip than that costs way less than buying a small plane for a short trip in the aircraft world. And the same actually is true of rocketry. A BFR flight will actually cost less than our Falcon 1 flight did back in the day. Wow. So that was about a $5 or $6 million marginal cost per flight. We're confident that BFR will be less than that. So that's profound, and that is what will enable the creation of a permanent base on the moon and a city on Mars. And that's the equivalent of like the Union Pacific Railroad, or having ships that can cross the oceans. Until you can get there, there's no way for all of the entrepreneurial energy to you can't do anything. There's no way for all the flowers to bloom. Once you can get there, the opportunity is immense. So we're going to do our best to get you there, and then make sure that there's an environment in which entrepreneurs can flourish, and then I think it'll be amazing.
Now, you talked about the sun. I want to make sure we cover this. You said it's about 5 billion years old.
Yes. And it still has another 5 billion before it turns into something else. So that number is just outside the realm already.
Wow. It's incomprehensible, actually. 5 billion.
It is. Oh my God.
Okay, Jasmine, I know that there's going to be, in our audience, there are going to be some kids out there thinking this is really cool. And I hope they do, because I think that it's really
I hope they do too, of course. Yes.
That this is a fascinating study that you're doing. I think it's fascinating work. And I think it's because of people like you that are doing work like this that we'll be able to make those technological advances that maybe you and I will never see, and maybe not even our kids or our grandkids. But I think each generation is laying that foundation and that knowledge in the wall. And I think you're doing that.
Yeah.
And you're to be commended for that, because I was like girl power
Oh my
when
God.
I saw you. I was like, yay!
Yay.
I always leave my guests with the last word. What do you think is important for the audience to understand about our universe, about our solar system, and just how fascinating these studies are?
Okay, so well, of course, we have talked about very big numbers tonight, very long lives, and very large sizes. What I would say to all the people watching and listening is that do not be intimidated by the numbers and by how big everything is.
I know.
Because my dad here always tells me that he's afraid of astronomy because of how big everything is and how far away everything is, and that it's just intimidating how to think about all of that and comprehend it. But I always encourage him and people in my family and my community that no, actually look up and do not be afraid. I mean, space, it at first glance it might be intimidating that everything is just so big and we're so small, but in fact it's very fascinating, and it leaves people at awe of how exciting it is. And just like you first, when we talked about stars and you were in awe of, oh my god, all these scenarios happening. So do not deny yourself the fantastical scenarios happening in space and the fantastic bodies, celestial bodies of space, just because they're big or like so incredibly far away. And actually, also, space is pretty accessible. You just need to be to look at the sky in a good place that's so dark, and just have a sky map with you or an application with the sky chart, and you're just good to go to learn about the lives of stars and the shapes of stars and the universe. Yes.
Yasmin, I don't know what to say. You have been an amazing guest.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank you for coming to us
Thank you.
all the way from
Thank you for the
Cairo
opportunity.
to share your knowledge. And I hope, I know that I'm going to be paying a lot more attention now when I see some of these articles and things that come across the airwaves. It doesn't affect us, but it does. You just don't see it.
Send me
just
the
don't
article
see
and we can talk about it.
You just don't see it, but you know it's there. I want to thank you for coming on Tab Talks. And audience, I'm telling you, she knows what she's talking about. So, go out and do some reading for yourself. We'll certainly post the link so you can look at these amazing pictures. We're going to put the pictures up as well. But when you hear some of these terms now, just remember planetary nebulae has nothing to do with planets. Okay?
Yes.
You probably wouldn't have
Yes.
known that. I didn't know that. So I'm just excited that we're putting another brick in the wall of knowledge. And Jasmine, you certainly helped us do that today. Thank you so much for coming on Tab Talks.
It has been my pleasure. It has absolutely been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.